Hello everyone, in this video we're going to speak about how to define a subclass using the extends keyword. So what I'm going to do is create two classes, and I'm keeping this class to have the main method. So to create the classes, I'm going to scroll all the way up in my package explorer and right click on this default package and click on new and then click on class. Now, my parent class can be called anything probably related to the task that I'm doing, but for this particular example, I'm really just demonstrating a concept. Don't really have much to put in there, so I'm just going to call this the parent class. Make sure this is unticked as it is by default, because you don't want this class to actually have a main method. We already have a main method in this file. So click on finish. Then I'm going to right click on default package again, and I'm going to create another class. This time I'm going to call it child class. Okay, so I've got my two classes at this point. This is the first and the second, and then of course I've got the one that holds the main method. So what I plan to do in the parent class is just create a default constructor. So the default constructor is pretty much its name, and it doesn't take any arguments. And what I want to do is print out a message to the screen using the print line method, and I'm gonna call this parent class is called. I'm gonna do the same for the, oh, I forgot the semicolon, that's why I was complaining. I'm gonna do the same for the child class. And this time, okay, I forgot to actually create the constructor. Oh, I don't know how to spell. Okay, so child class. Now I can paste that in and delete that, and I'll call this child. Okay, so now I've got the default constructor, or a constructor that doesn't take any arguments in my child class, and one the same thing, but the message is a little bit different. So this just indicates that that this message came from this class, whereas this message comes from the parent class. So what I want to do now is create an object in the main method of the parent class, and I'm going to call this object reference parent, and this is just going to call the parent class just like this. Okay, so I'm going to run the program and let's see what we get. So this is going to call the default constructor, which says parent class is called. So it's pretty much what we want. It's looking good. Now I can also create a reference from the child class. So child one, because I'm going to create another one in a minute. And child class. And this is naturally going to be calling this message. So let's run and see what we get. Yes, so I'll get the parent class is called and then the child class is called. But can I actually do something like this? So can I say parent class, and now I'll say, actually I'll make that one child2 is equal to an object of the child class. Oh, okay, so here Eclipse is complaining, it's not happy with what I just typed in, because this is a data type that is independent of this data type. So there's no compatibility between the two. So if I hover the mouse over this, it's actually going to tell me it's a mismatch of type, of data type, because we cannot convert from child class to a parent class. But what I actually meant to do is to actually create an object of the child class that inherits from the parent class. Just because I name this child class and this parent class, this doesn't create inheritance between my two classes. You may have heard these concepts or these terms. So in this particular example, I'm referring to the parent class. I'm referring to this as a parent class, but you may have heard something like the base class or another term like the superclass. So yeah, they all have the same meaning. And for the child class, so I'm referring to this as child class, but you may have heard the term derived class or even a subclass. Okay, so they all pretty much mean the same thing as well. So what I meant to have is an object of the child class to have being created from the parent class over here. But that's not possible because there isn't any inheritance indicated. So if I want to define a subclass, or if I want to define this to be a subclass, I need to use the extends keyword, and then I need to let it know which class I'm meaning to extend from, which is this class, the parent class. Okay, so now I've indicated there is inheritance going on. So what that means, so the inheritance is one of the one concept that is really big in object-oriented programming. Now we can actually, the child class can inherit all of the public methods that are in, or anything that's public in parent class. Except for the constructors, but I'm going to talk about that in a second. So I'm going to go back here, and you notice that the message is actually gone. Okay, but if I run this program, what is going to happen? So just a second, or just probably less than a minute ago, I said that all public members are inherited. So when I say extends parent class, this is going to extend all the public members of this parent class. However, constructors are not inherited, but in the situation when there is a constructor that does not have any arguments like this one in the superclass, then that constructor will be called by default. Okay, so let's see what happens when I run this program. Or before we do that, so we've seen this before, so we've actually gotten this message the first time. And previously, when we ran this code before the inheritance, we also got this message in this call, but that's going to change now because we've actually extended from the parent class. Okay, so what we're going to get is from this line, we'll actually get this message first, and the same is true here, and then we will get child class is called as well. How is that possible? So like I said, let's run it and let's confirm that this is really what's happening. So this is the first call, parent class, and then this comes from the second call, which is, or the creation of this child class object. So parent class is called, and then child class is called, and in the third, or line number 7, is executing this line, or this output. Parent class is called, and then child class, which is what we predicted in our comments. But how is this possible? Like I said, all the public members are inherited by the child class, except for constructors. But if that constructor is a constructor that doesn't have any arguments, then that will be called by default. But why is this line executed first and then this one? So here is what's happening. When this object is being created here, this is going to take us to, so this call here is going to take us to the default constructor in the child class. So we are here, okay? And then what's happening, the call to this child class constructor calls the parent constructor. So this is going to come to this constructor. It executes this line, and then it returns back to the child class constructor and executes this line as well. So this is how we end up with having the message that is sitting in our default constructor in the parent class, and then the message that is sitting in the default constructor of the child class. But this is only possible when the parent class constructor is not taking any arguments. In the next video, we can explicitly call a parent constructor using the super keyword, so stay tuned.